But before we could do that, if we would have gone ahead with that this year, we already know that our children have to make choices, especially if they're going over to HF, between our music, our orchestra program, as well as going to the classes at HF. And if we would have instituted it this year, those children, your child, would have had to choose between the arts and what we're doing to improve the program as far as humanities and analytical applications. So this is a phase one of what we are doing and offering that more rigorous curriculum. So the rigorous curriculum has been instituted for all of the students. We are increasing that acceleration, and so we are in a phase-in process. So Parker is getting together and having meetings about their schedule, and then after they have that, the gifted ad hoc committee is coming back together, and then we'll be able to work with the Parker Junior High staff to go to phase two of what it will look like for students to increase that rigor and that challenge. It will start, our goal is for that to start next year. So phase one is this year, phase two will be next year. So when Parker gets moving on that schedule and then has the opportunity to come back and say this is the schedule that will allow us to institute the humanities and analytical applications portions up here. So the analytical applications will combine science and math, and that humanities, social science, and then language arts. So that will be phase two, and our goal is to start next fall.
Another question? Yes, ma'am.
We are working on that, so the website is still a work in progress. The 160-day scope and sequence is Common Core aligned, and we will have that. There are some PDFs that we can put up there. It would be the PDF of the scope and sequence. The teachers are actually going through right now and saying, you know what, instead of starting with counting and cardinality, I might have to go over to algebraic and operations and thinking. So, but we can put up a PDF because this is our year. We're still working with that, so I understand it might be a little frustrating. But we do have that 160-day scope and sequence. It is aligned to the Common Core, and we can get some things on the website that will give you an idea of what that scope and sequence is and looks like. English language arts, they're just starting this year, so I won't be able to give you anything with that, but what I can tell you, the way that we are working on attacking the English language arts Common Core is through writing. And that's something that I think that every parent knows in our district is one area. The thing that's beautiful about the Common Core is because it is demanding writing across all content areas and all curriculum, and it's asking not only for narrative and persuasive, but it's talking about, you know, what is this critique? How can I critique someone else's writing? What is argumentative writing? How can I write a claim? How can I back it up with warrants? So we are really looking at writing across the curriculum and really how to get that in each subject and expose our students to more technical writing as well as more narrative and persuasive.
It sounds like it's in the works. I would love to see for everything, for art, for music. I think other parents might love to do that too, but it sounds like that's in the works.
So it absolutely is, and by the end of that 5-year sequence, what we were talking about with our Big Six, by the end of that 5 years, everything will be very nicely packaged. But it will take time to get there.
This is a huge reform for school districts, not only ours, but the rest in the state. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the money that would be spent on technology and the deficit in our budget.
Absolutely.
I can take that one. Do you see a deficit? We run a little bit differently than the federal government and the state government. We can't just run a deficit and then borrow more money. We can't make more widgets, we can't borrow more money unless we have a referendum. So what we've done over the last many years has been very frugal with the money. We've spent it appropriately. We've done a lot of different things within the schools, but we've funded, we've balanced, and we've made sure that we had adequate fund balances. So the district actually had fund balances in the range of $25 to $28 million, which we've used for operating processes. As opposed to having to go out and borrow this money or have a referendum to ask the taxpayers for more money, what we've done is we've been able to save a little bit here and there such that we knew we were coming forward with these kind of initiatives. We knew we had to do things at the schools. So over the last many years, we've made improvements to all of our schools. I know parking lots don't seem like a big deal, but We've done a lot of safety issues with parking lots, with entries to schools, and that's all come out of fund balances without asking for extra money. We knew that we needed to do some things with curriculum, Common Core, and we really knew that our community demanded technology within our schools. And we haven't been able to do it adequately. We've added technology, but it's never been the right direction or a complete package. So by having adequate fund balances, we've been able to have single-time type expenditures, so we still have adequate fund balances, we still have operating money. We aren't going to go to the community and say, we're doing this huge initiative and we need a lot of extra tax dollars or we need a big referendum. So these are expenditures, although we do have a deficit this year for construction at 3 of our schools, and for the technology program, we don't anticipate running significant deficits for the next 4 to 5 years.
So this is a one-time purchase as far as technology, and we should not see a deficit for our following school years. Is that correct?
No, we don't anticipate, this is the largest single portion of the technology. Upgrading our infrastructure at the schools, Wi-Fi, adequate internet that's coming into the schools, adequate internet that's coming into the district, laptops for all of our teachers and our administrators, and then beginning with the iPads, the carts. So the largest one-time expenditure is this year. We may have a deficit next year is involved with it in the process, but we won't have the large construction projects this summer that we had in the last couple of years. So the deficits that we'll see are already anticipated within our existing fund balances, such that before we start any other large-scale projects, we'll be planning way ahead for those.
And this is we went from a huge surplus. We had a substantial amount of money to a big deficit.
No. We have a deficit for this year's budget. We don't have a deficit in our fund balance.
Okay, we don't have a deficit.
No, we do not. We're not like the federal government that has $16 trillion or the state that has $20 billion. We do not have a deficit that we're borrowing money on. We have money in our fund balances, which are held by the county and held by the state, so that ultimately we can have adequate funds to run our district that don't require us to go out and borrow money.
The easiest way of understanding, if you're going to remodel your kitchen, your checking account, you have a certain amount of money in your checking account, but you've been saving up for this for 20 years. That money in your savings account is being used. So you're taking money out of there, which is a deficit. That's school lingo for the budget. That is where we are at this point.
So there's still adequate money in the savings account. Thank you.
Okay. All right, just a couple more questions. Yes, and then I'll take you over there. Yes, ma'am.
I believe you had said that for assessing the students in terms of figuring out the differentiation, that a math test, is that the right lingo?
MAP is one test that we use, yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm wanting to understand which tests are being used and how much time gets used for testing, given that I know there's the ISAT, there's still the NWEA, I don't know if the COGAP's still out there,
So the MAP testing is the Measure of Academic Progress through Northwest Evaluation Association. And so the MAP test is given 3 times a year, at the beginning of the year, at the middle of the year, and at the end of the year. And what that is telling us is growth. So it goes back to what are the assessments that we're using for formative and what are the assessments that we're using for summative. So
what's the difference? I don't know the difference.
formative assessment is kind of like, let me use this analogy, maybe this will make it much clearer. So I want to lose 50 pounds by May, but I know that I need to do things in little increments to get me there. And so I might decide that I need to eat better, and I might decide I need to cut out the sweets, and I might decide that I need to exercise. And so when, not if, when I start eating better, when I cut out the sweets, I'll start to see the pounds start to go down, the clothes size, you'll get to see all of that. So the little things that you're doing in between help you get to that end goal. So we know that we want to see students grow. We know that we want to meet each student where they're coming in and make sure that they're growing at least a year's growth during the time that we have them. So we need little things along the way, which are formative assessment, to get me to my end goal. So hopefully that little analogy helped just a little bit. And so there are things as a classroom teacher that I need to do to assess the learning of my students. So some of those formative assessments could be, after I'm done with my math unit, I get an end of the unit math test. And I can see what the students learned when I taught. So that's one piece of assessment that's different from like what we're doing with the MAP assessment that is giving me the benchmarks. This is where they started at the beginning of the year, this is where they are at the middle, this is where we want them to be at the end. So there's many different things that we use. We are giving the COGAT, but only to a select amount of students that are within that ACE program. So we're also using our MAP testing as a screener for those students who we might need to test for that ACE program. In addition to that, those students who might get in that window for the testing, if they're getting 90% on MAP and above, those students might also take the NAT, depending on if we're going to be looking for analytical applications or humanities. So you're right, we do need to have a lot of different checks and measures, but they each tell us different things. If you want, we can call and talk and go further, because there is a lot of that going on, which is why we have the portion of the Big Six to organize and manage that data.
Right, which I do appreciate, because, you know, as a parent of a kid who one year got a test grade on it, or a score on his COGAT that was, I thought, terrible, you know, and I went and talked to his teacher about it, and she'd never seen the score. So I didn't, and the cover letter said, oh, these were your kid's scores, and, you know, we do this so this can be integrated into the classroom, and, you know, obviously that can't be happening when the teacher doesn't know the results of the test.
Right, so COGAT is not one that we're using, but really the one that we are really using and working with is that MAP, the Measure of Academic Progress. That's one that I think that if you would ask any teacher in the room, they would be able to talk to you about the RIT and what the RIT means and why we're really looking at that and how that's really helping them with the differentiation of instruction.
One more question, yes?
I love eChalk, it's great. Is there a way to make sure that all teachers are doing it? And is there any way to, I have 2 kids at Parker, 1 at Western, so the 2 kids at Parker have all the different core teachers and, you know, I don't always know what core they're in and this, is there any way to like have a family page where you can instantly access the teachers? Or do you always have to go back to the beginning, to the teacher, to the core? I mean, are we going to get a little bit more user-friendly with it?
That's something we will look at. We have our eChalk specialist here, Mr. Naminsky. He'll take a look at that as far as that. Your first part of that, every teacher using it, every teacher in the district does use it. If there is a teacher that's not using it, we'd ask you to give them a call. Because as far as we know, we look at it every week and it's being used.
Okay. And that's, sometimes it's like, because there's so many different teachers that I'm having to pull and start back, you always have to kind of start back at the beginning. Parker, this course, it's, you know, overwhelming as a parent of multiple children.
Okay. So with that being said, we greatly appreciate that you were here in attendance. And if you have any other questions, you can give me a call or anyone on our panel. We'll be glad to talk with you tomorrow or any other day of the week, I guess. So thank you very much. Please remember this will be videotaped. It will be placed on our website, and the PowerPoint will also be present tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.